In this video, I'm going to show you one idea or some ways to maybe generate some starting questions and terms when you're doing research, particularly if you're trying to find something related to online information. This particular video, I'm working on a technical proposal for something, so I need to have some very specific details, but I don't know maybe where to get that. So this is a good starting point. To be a good researcher, you need to give yourself good things to work with. And so you start with techniques that help you search before you even start searching. So in this case, developing good questions, developing terms or keywords to search for. If I'm thinking through what to look for before I go to look, then it's going to make my search that much more efficient. It's also going to give me some ideas. And so there's some brainstorming that's happening here, etc. So this example, I'm using a tablet and a stylus because well, one, so I can record it, but when I handwrite, I can think differently than when I'm typing, but that's me. If you're somebody who works better working in a Word doc or Google Doc, then do that. I'm also doing this so that I can kind of draw and note as I talk. So if you're somebody that likes to do that too, try a piece of paper, try a tablet. Really, the idea is any way you can is to generate these ideas so that you have this list to refer to as you do your search. Also, so that you can, maybe cross something off, add to it, modify stuff, and you don't have to keep it all in your head. So I've begun already. This is I'm developing these terms, and something that I usually put in my notes is like, how do I guide myself? How do I give myself some boundaries? And so I'm going to name my topic, or I'm going to name what it is that I'm trying to find out. And that way I can keep referring back to this page or these pages instead of getting lost in the internet. So my topic, my what is it that I'm looking at? I want to propose, and this is part of what I'm writing, I want to propose that I start, or that somehow locally we start a community garden in a local park. So there's a park that's near my house. There's a lot of land that just gets mowed down to grass, but nobody uses it as grass. And I thought it would be a really good idea to maybe put a community garden there instead of just the lawn or just the grass. So there are some questions that I would want to start with. So as I'm thinking through not only the garden, so what I'm thinking about in terms of the garden, I also should be thinking about what's at the park itself, other things related to community, what's it going to take to start it, and along with starting it, I know that there's something to do with maintaining it or maintenance. So these are some ideas that I'm going to jot down to begin with. I'll also start with some questions, because often it's easier to start with a statement or a question before drilling into individual words. So what are the things that I need to figure out? Well, if I'm going to propose this, I need to propose which part of the park I think would be good for the community garden. And so along with that is I'm probably also going to have to tell them how big I think the garden should be, and probably why to both of those. Now that may not be something I can find online, but those are questions that are coming to me as I'm doing my research. Also, what kind of soil is there? What do I know about soil? Maybe not a whole lot. So there could be some research to be done on soil, how to find out about different kinds of soil, the acidity, the pH, that kind of thing. So that might be something that I need to do a little bit of research on. But what I'm going to do before I get too far along here is draw attention to these lists of questions over here on the side. These are the 5WH questions, and a lot of us remember those from elementary school, junior high: who, what, when, where, why, and how. But these are great starters for developing questions that we then try to answer in our research. These are also really, really good for trying to determine information. So if we can generate a number of questions related to these 5WHs, then again, we're going to have a better sense of what to look for when we actually go online. You can add to this something like which, as I have over here someplace, which part, or did, or do. So other sorts of question formats, that's fine. But if you start with the 5WH, it's going to give you some stuff to work with. So let me go to my next page here. Again, I've already generated a little bit, pardon me, for the sake of this video. So if I start with some who questions, And I don't have to put these in order. These are questions that are just coming to me as I'm thinking through my topic. So it's a park, it's nearby. I wonder who makes those decisions. So who would decide if a community garden could go there or not? And who would I need to contact in order to find that out? And how would I contact them? So already I'm thinking in terms of these questions. My guess is that I'm going to have to look at some kind of website, maybe related to I don't know if there's a website related to the park or not. So I write that down, website for park. I can look into that. But there's probably some kind of a website. And on that website, I'm going to look for contact information. I may also look for, maybe community development. If there's something on the website related to community development, and I'm sorry, my handwriting is very messy with this stylus. So those are the first couple of questions. So, who makes those decisions and who do I need to contact? How would I do that? I also sort of related to that, who usually makes decisions like this in general. So maybe not at the particular park, but maybe who makes decisions about local space. Am I talking about, sort of related to that, at the state level? So is this a state park? So who would make decisions about local space for a state park? Is it a county park? Is it a town or a township? So I'm going to add that word. A township park? I don't know who owns it. I don't know who maintains it. So who runs or maintains the park that I'm talking about? Which also means, is there a name for this park? And the funny thing is, the park that I'm actually referring to, I actually did some research on this, and it doesn't have a name. So it becomes difficult then to explain what I mean. But you might then talk about location if it doesn't have a proper name, if I can actually write. You might, think about, like, where is it located, or what is it next to? What other facilities are nearby? So that might have something to do. You could even look up the latitude and the longitude of something. That might be helpful for you depending on your project. All right, so we've got some who questions that are listed here. Also, in terms of coming back to this idea of how would I do that, I'm going to look for maybe contact information on a website. But there may also be something like, in terms of how these decisions are usually made, are there procedures for proposing something? Do they have any kind of forms, perhaps, on their websites? Are there petitions that I might need to sign? So again, at this point, I'm just trying to think of ideas. It doesn't mean that I'm going to use all of this in my final project, but it's giving me things to think about and things to look for. So if I go to this next page, and this one's blank, and I'm still thinking about these 5 WH questions. So I'm still at the who point. So who would I need to be involved? And by this, I mean not only in terms of the decisions, but building, maybe marketing or promoting it, maybe the gardening itself. So if I'm proposing this and I find out not only who's making the decision, that's something that I can look up, and I'm going to need to do some research on that. But I should also see some kind of research on, are there companies that help with this? Are there landscaping businesses, maybe, that I should look into? Are there community gardens? Anything nearby? Community gardens already in existence? Again, sorry about my writing in this video. So even writing those ideas down there, so community gardens locally that I could take a look at. What this then suggests to me is, so I'm thinking about local, what if I expand this and look nationally or elsewhere? And the reason I might want to do that is, where have community gardens been formed before? And I'm going to just reduce this to CG, community gardens. So So where have they been created? And in maybe in a city, or maybe a location that's similar to one that I'm thinking about. So, for example, I know that some cities have reclaimed empty lots to make their community garden. Are there websites related to those that I could take a look at? Is there contact information on any of those sites where maybe I could email somebody and ask some questions? I could maybe find out what their budget was like. So I'm going to add another page here for notes. So thinking again about more notes, I know I need to look into budget. I could ask them, those other sites, or sorry, those other makers of community gardens, what was their time frame to build? Or even their time frame from proposal to putting it in action. How about how long did it take to finish it? How many people were involved? Coming back to this idea of budget, where did the funds come from? How did they maybe maintain those funds, or how was the money distributed? So how was the money kept, collected, distributed? Those kinds of things. So for the sake of this video, so I'm not doing every possible idea that I come up with, I'm going to do the same sort of thing with the other W questions and the H question. And I'm going to try to give myself as many things to think about as I can. Now, for some of you, you may find this overwhelming. There's so many questions. What is it that I'm going to limit myself to? Go back to your list after you have created and answered some of these questions related to the 5WH, or the, add a which, or add a did or do. So after you go back this, you can kind of say, okay, this part, let's say you had some notes here. You might say, okay, so this isn't feasible right now, so I'm going to put that part on hold, but this bit of information I can search for, and I know that if I look on the web for that, I'm going to find that. Or if I look for organizations, maybe even a nonprofit organization, or if I look for community garden plus, let's say Baltimore, if that's nearby, or community garden and Chicago, something like that. If I start to go back into my notes and, cross some stuff out that's like, this is taking me down a path I don't know, or I'm, hold or wait on that, let me do some other research first. Go back in again, going back into my notes and saying, maybe start here. In fact, let me go back to some of the other things that I've already written. So if I come back to the ideas I have and mark it up after I've already listed out my concepts, that's where I can say things like, I'm gonna start nationally. This is actually something where I'm gonna start. I want to see what it looks like beyond my local community, and then I'm going to zoom in. Something else that I need to look at probably right away or pretty soon is figuring out who makes these decisions. And so I'm going to first do a search online for the name of my town and maybe a council or maintenance or landscaping, or I might go into a government site. So I know that the .gov URL is related to government. So maybe I'll look at Maryland government sites to see anything related to local parks. Again, I'm going to go into my notes. I'm going to keep working on them, and I'm going to figure out what kind of order to do to start searching. So this entire video is just about generating the ideas before you go online or someplace else to do the search. In a different video, I will show you how to take some of these ideas and then apply them to actually searching. Good luck.